On this episode of the NH Experience, we have a very legendary, special, iconic guest here on the episode. He is an actor, producer, writer. His impact in acting has spanned decades for our culture in Hollywood, on Broadway. You've seen this man in films, television. He is the one, the only, the man, the legend himself, Mr. Glynn Turman. How are you, sir?
I'm well, my brother. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Myself and Jackie Ray will be talking to you today. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Really greatly appreciate your time and thank you for what you've done for our culture and our people as well.
Thank you. Like I said, thank you for having me.
I want to start out because, like I said,
Hi, Jackie.
Hey, Glenn. I know. I was like, I'm over here. Somebody gonna say hi to
me? I see you over there. I see you.
I want to just ask you first and foremost, when did you discover and when did you realize that acting was your lane and your gift in life? At what point did you realize that?
Well, the journey has been very different for me, or I would imagine, than most who seek out acting, because I didn't seek out to be an actor. I sort of came upon it just by happenstance, kismet, fate. I thought I was going to be the next Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson was my hero, so I thought I was going to be a baseball player, as a kid. But I ended up in a stage play on Broadway called The Raisin in the Sun with Sidney Poitier and Ruby Dee and Lou Gossett Jr. and all these iconic figures in the very first production that I ended up being in. And I auditioned because my mother and Lorraine Hansberry, the author of the play, were friends, having grown up in Greenwich Village in Manhattan. And so I auditioned for the play without really knowing what an audition was. It was my mother's idea. She said her friend Lorraine Hansberry had written a play and that there was a part for a little boy in it, and would I be interested in trying out for the part? And I said, I don't know, if it doesn't interfere with my baseball game on Saturday. I got a game on Saturday. So she said, well, it might if you get the part. So I thought the part was mine. I went there and all these other kids were sitting there. I didn't know what they were there for, because I didn't know that they were there trying to get my part, so because I thought it was already mine. But I ended up in the play and I stayed with it for a year and I liked it. Acting on Broadway and going around to different cities with the play. I enjoyed that, but I still didn't want to be an actor. It wasn't until I got to the High School of Performing Arts in New York, which is now called LaGuardia, I think, that I got an A in acting, because this was a school that taught you acting or dance or music. And I was in the acting department and I got an A, and it was the first time I ever got an A in school. I was not a good student. I was a chronic truant. I cut class all the time. And when I got this A, the first A I was able to bring home to my mother, I said, look, Ma, I got an A. She said, I've been trying to tell you, you're a natural actor. And then that's when I said, okay, all right, I guess I'll try this thing.
Mom's
and that's how I got into it. Yep.
That's awesome. I mean, that leads me to my next question, because I grew up in the 90s, but my family raised me right off 70s exploitation films. I love the classic black films of the 70s. Two of the films that I noticed you in was obviously Five on the Black Hand Side, and of course the legendary Cooley High.
Right.
So you talk about cutting class, you talk about, the student aspect of it. How fun was that as far as...
That was me.
Yeah, Cooley High.
That was me. Preach and Cooley High, that was my story, man. That's exactly how it went for me. That was me. Right.
What was it like just to be on a set as you like you're older, obviously, you're in that zone where you're now you want to be an actor. You're in another film at like Cooley High. What was that experience like for you? And did you think this movie would be what it's grown to be, today in our culture?
Well, it was a great experience. We had a great time. Larry Jacobs and I are best friends to this day. He played Cochise, uh, as our Garrett Morris, dear friend Garrett. Michael Schultz and I were friends before we did Cooley High. We had worked together, so we're still close. So I've made some very good friends, lifelong friends, as a result of that particular show, and had no idea that it would become the iconic motion picture that it has become. And I was over in Wales filming not too long ago, filming a new movie called Black Cake. Oprah Winfrey is producing, and in Wales, they knew me from Cooley High, and I was like, what? And these were young Black kids who were Welsh. I didn't think I'd find Black people in Wales who were born and raised in Wales. Maybe migrated to Wales. I could see it, but fourth and fifth generation and these kids knew me from Cooley High. And it was really crazy. So it's become all over the world, as it was inducted into the Film Hall of Fame, Library of Congress Hall of Fame, but you never know going into something like that.
I want to stick with that. Nick always gives me a really hard time because my parents didn't let me watch any blaxploitation. I just saw Cooley High probably like 6 years ago. Don't judge me, but do not judge me. Don't do it.
All right, okay.
But
Okay.
the blaxploitation films really kind of solidified the careers of people like yourself and other Black actors. Looking back on those blaxploitation films and like what Nick said and what they mean to the culture, when you look back on those films, how do you feel about them now?
Well, I speak about it in length in my documentary, The Legend of Glynn Turman. I go through what that Black exploitation period was really all about and what it meant to us as performers. And what I like to say was the only thing that was actually stigmatized it was the fact that there wasn't enough diversity in content. That the content was usually thematically targeting the negative aspects of the Black experience.
Right.
And what I had to say to that was all movies had gangsters and prostitutes and pimps and, characters of ill repute as a part of their themes. But they also had other movies at the same time that glorified the positive accomplishments of the culture. Right. Well, that was not so with us. One of the things that made Cooley High stick out, or Five on the Black Hands side stick out, was that it was a diversion from the influx of negative cultural stories. It gave us a different look. And that's what made Cooley High stick out. That's what made Five on the Black Hand side stick out, that it was not about what most of the movies of that time were about. Mm-hmm. But as far as what those movies were about, all the movies had the same elements of that time. James Cagney, well, you guys don't know who James Cagney was, or Humphrey Bogart, but they were doing the same thing.
Yeah. Indeed.
I also read that, speaking of the movies of that time and kind of the overall tone of that time, I read that George Lucas had you in mind for Han Solo for Star Wars, but you didn't get it because he didn't want to muddy the waters of, Black Han Solo and White Princess Leia. How did you find that out, and what did that mean to you when you heard you weren't selected because of the color of your skin?
Well, not being selected because of the color of your skin was nothing new to me. You got to
Right.
remember, my generation was a little more thick-skinned than your generation. We were able to deal with that kind of an assault a little better. And not that you shouldn't. I'm glad that you guys are so sensitive to it. That's good. That's a good thing. But my generation was used to that onslaught of being marginalized. But at the same time, when I found out, I didn't believe it because it came to me from a friend who called me and said, Glynn, and this was years and years after Star Wars. He said, I just read in Han Solo, I just read in George Lucas's book that you were going to be Han Solo. Well, the book had just come out called Skywalker. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, yeah, read the book. So I got the book and I looked in it. And in the book, Lucas says, yeah, I was going to hire a young Black actor named Glynn Turman for the part of. So years went by, and I talk about this in my documentary, The Legend of Glynn Turman, being streamed right now as we speak. Stop. Pick it up at Amazon. But I talk about it running into George Lucas at a party and having the opportunity to ask him about that choice that he made. And we discussed it at some length at a party in New York, maybe not more than 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Awesome. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have a documentary currently streaming on Amazon, sir.
Hey, I have a documentary streaming on Amazon.
Yeah. When you had such, as I said earlier, such an illustrious career in the theater, on television, and film, what is it like for you to view yourself on camera, to have a complete body of work to just highlight and give you your flowers, as it were, for the world to see? How does that resonate with you?
Well, I'm still adjusting to this fact. I'm still adjusting to the fact that I have the audacity to put out a documentary called The Legend of Glynn Turman. But what legend? I have to make that adjustment. And my ego is, as most actors, is such that I should be able to make that adjustment. But the thing that makes it palatable for me, trying to hold on to some semblance of humility, is the fact that I am glad that I've left something for my children and grandchildren to see and hear my story from my point of view. In other words, from the horse's mouth. They will get to hear the stories about me and my journey, and maybe take something from that can help them along the way. As at the same time, I think that hopefully young actors and performers or people who are interested in a career in theater or entertainment will maybe glean something from my journey. And so I'm able to amass an amount of comfort from that and say, okay, oh man, you've got something to say. Maybe something may be beneficial for someone out of this.